In fact, you remind me of something President Wilson once said. He said, "Sometimes people call me an idealist." Well, that's the way I know I'm an American. Even so, you probably also run up against people who love your idealism, but warn you to lower your sights, to scale back your ambitions a bit, to settle for something less. And you know, their hearts may be in the right place. They may be worried that you're in for a letdown once you realize that it can take years and even decades for your best efforts to bear fruit. See, we live in a culture, after all, that tells us that our lives should be easy, that we can have everything we want without a whole lot of effort. But the truth is, and you know this, creating anything meaningful takes time. And sometimes the only thing that happens in an instant is destruction. I say this because during our trip to Haiti, Jill Biden and I, we got to visit the people there, and they're amidst so much misery and destruction, all of which occurred in a matter of minutes. It is so easy to ask, after so much ruin, how can anything rise again? After so much loss, how can anyone still have hope? But let me tell you that everyone I met during that visit, doctors, relief workers, Haitians, Americans, citizens of the world, they were focused on the task of answering those questions. Yeah, they were exhausted and they were heartbroken, but they were equally unyielding in their determination to help that country heal, and fully aware of how many years that would take. And by the way, I also met with President Preval and his wife Elizabeth, who's a GW graduate herself, and she just went on and on about how GW, the community, has been there at the forefront of the efforts to help Haiti from the very beginning. But the point is, everyone I encountered during my trip embodied a Haitian proverb that I learned, which says that little by little, the bird builds its nest. And your generation is doing its best to live by this idea. You see, as impatient as you may be to get out there and change the world, and that's a good thing, you're equally patient for that change to come. As idealistic as all of you may be, what your generation has lived through has also tempered you with a deep realism. You understand things that perhaps your parents and I even don't always have to consider when our world was still separated by walls of concrete and communication, that we are no longer isolated from what happens on the other side of the world, that it's in our best interest to look beyond our immediate self-interest and look out for one another globally, that so many of today's challenges are borderless, from the economy to terrorism to climate change, and that solving those problems demands cooperation with others. And more than any other generation, yours is fully convinced that you're uniquely equipped to solve those challenges. You believe that you can change your communities and change the world, and you know what? I think you're right. Yes, you can. So today, graduates, I have one more request to make of you. One more challenge, and that is keep going, keep giving, keep engaging. I'm asking you to take what you've learned here and embrace the full responsibilities that a degree from an institution like GW gives you. I'm asking your generation to be America's face to the world. It will make the world safer, it will make America stronger, and it will make you more competitive. Now, you didn't think I'd show up here without another challenge, did you? I know that some of you may be thinking, well, hang on, Michelle, I'm in debt. I've got to find a job in a tough economy, and now you want me to do what? And I know there are parents out there thinking the same thing. Hang on, Michelle, I just shelled out 6 figures to get my kid to this day, and now you want her to do what? I'm just asking you to keep being you, to keep doing what you're doing. Just take it global. Yes, that can mean serving in the world's most broken places, or it can simply mean surfing foreign news sources to get an idea of how other young people see things in other parts of the world. It can mean continuing your own personal and professional growth by traveling far and wide, or it can mean reaching back to convince the students behind you to try study abroad programs, especially students from communities and backgrounds who might not normally consider it. It can mean seizing that overseas opportunity with a company, or it can mean staying here and fixing the world by doing business with the world, and at the same time creating opportunity in your own community. This class of graduates in particular has a leg up, because at GW you've already been trained to think this way. Nearly half of undergraduates here study abroad. As Zoe said, you can't walk a block without running into the State Department or the World Bank or any number of NGOs and faith-based organizations, and all around you every day are classmates and friends from more than 130 different countries. So for you, it's as easy as falling out of bed, even if some of you stay in bed until noon. But so many Americans either don't have those opportunities or simply don't consider them. And as interconnected as we are, as quickly as the 21st century global economy moves, we have to find ways to extend those opportunities to as many young people as possible. And I say this as someone who, like perhaps many of your parents, didn't always have or consider those opportunities. As you heard, I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood on the south side of Chicago where the idea of spending some time abroad just didn't register. My brother and I were the first in our families to go to college, so we were way more focused on just getting in, getting through, and getting on with our lives. And after law school, my priority was paying off my student debt. So I just never considered that I needed to take an additional journey or expand the boundaries of my own life. And then I met my husband, whose life was His life was somewhat different than mine. His had been more informed by experiences abroad. And watching him helped me to expand the way I looked at things, to consider my life as connected not just to my country, but to the world. And it's a perspective that we now are trying to instill in our daughters as well. And today, fortunately, in my new role, it affords me extraordinary opportunities to visit foreign countries. And during these trips, I try to spend as much time as possible with young people. And those experiences are what convince me so fully that it's in this nation's best interest that your generation get out there, because it's going to strengthen all of us. Now, there are some things that government can do, and things that I'll pursue as First Lady to bring these opportunities within reach to more young people. For example, my husband's committed to substantially increasing the number of volunteer opportunities within the Peace Corps. And by the way, joining the Peace Corps only requires that you be young at heart, because the oldest active member is 85 years old. We're also expanding exchange programs, study abroad opportunities, and encouraging universities like GW to create their own. Because as those of you who have already participated in study abroad know, the most lasting lessons sometimes don't always come from books. But more important than anything government can do will be a sincere willingness on your part to keep sharing your enthusiasm, to keep believing that you can make a difference, to keep going to places where there's brokenness and injustice and despair, and asking what you can do to lift those places up. It is through the simple act of engaging with your counterparts around the world that you can make the world a safer place. As you know, in times of tension, we tend to focus on what makes us different, things like color or creed, class or country, when sometimes that only serves to deepen misunderstanding and harden mistrust. In the midst of our struggles, we too easily forget about all that we share in common, that no matter where or how we live, we all have the same dreams, a life of dignity, chance at opportunity, a better future for our kids. It reminds me of a story our Secretary of State and friend Hillary Clinton told during a visit to one of our embassies earlier this year.